Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sir Hunt on X on this 23rd of October of the calendar year 2025. Here's hoping everyone had themselves a wonderful day today. One topic and one topic show tonight. I'll touch on here in a second. It's a crazy day in the sports world. We know what just happened with the NBA. Just to remind everybody, if you have a gambling problem, seek help. Apparently, these individuals who were arrested didn't. They let it get out of hand, and that's why they wound up where they wound up. Just get that out of the way. Now, due to no show this tomorrow or this coming weekend, I decided to devote a topic that's going to take place 35 years ago Saturday night, and it'll be talked about tonight. The event took place at the Mirage Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. It was James Buster Douglas, fresh off the biggest upset in sports history when he upset Mike Tyson, making the first title defense against the number one contender, Evander Holyfield. I'll divulge into how we get to this point, their careers, what happened, a lot of the myths I'll shoot down, among many other things. Well, how do we get here? Well, let's start with the angle of James Buster Douglas. We already know what happened with the Mike Tyson upset. Let's go before how he got to that point. One of the more inconsistent and sporadic careers of a fighter who had the talent to do something special. When you talk about that left jab of his, of a fighter 6'4" with an 81-inch reach, it was basically Larry Holmes-esque. And when he had that jab, he could do damage with it, and that's what he did. And that's when he was on. Part of the problem was his heart wasn't into it. Part of the problem was because his heart was into it, he didn't want to get, he couldn't get himself in shape and stay consistent to where he could perform at the level he could. And that's why his career for the longest part was inconsistent. Now he was a part of the Don King mix of the mid 80s, where we know the governing bodies spread out after the reign of Larry Holmes' tenure as the legit heavyweight champion of the world. And in the middle of all of that, Buster Douglas started to put it together a little bit, which included a win over former heavyweight champion Greg Page. And that landed him a shot for the vacant heavyweight championship against Tony Tucker, a vacant championship that Michael Spinks threw away because we all know Michael Spinks was a coward at that point. And in the fight against Tony Tucker, he gave Tony Tucker all he can handle for the better half of the first 6 to 7 rounds of that fight. And he had that fight under control and looked like he was going to pull away. But out of nowhere, Tony Tucker found himself to win the last 3 rounds and to get a stoppage win in the 10th round to win that vacant championship that Michael Spinks threw away because he wanted no parts of either Tony Tucker or James Buster Douglas, as we know. And we talk about how Buster Douglas got to that point. Son of a fighter, Billy Dynamite Douglas, who was just like a Mike Tyson, a relentless fighter in the ring, who was a great body puncher, who had an uppercut like Mike Tyson, and pushed Buster Douglas hard because he wanted Douglas to have the opportunities he didn't, because he never got a shot at any world championship during his time as a fighter. And Billy wanted James to have the opportunities Billy never got. And when he fought for the heavyweight championship against Tony Tucker, it was probably the farthest he got to him at that point. But as that fight was going on, things changed in the Buster Douglas household. Buster Douglas terminated his father as a trainer, brought in J.D. McCauley, an unknown trainer out of the Midwestern Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, the home of James Buster Douglas. And at that point, Buster Douglas managed to put together a decent 6-fight winning streak, which include wins over fighters like Wimpy Holstead, Trevor Burbick, and maybe the most significant one was the win over Oliver McCall on the undercard of Mike Tyson, Carl Williams. It was basically a heavyweight eliminator, where the winner of that fight was probably going to get the shot against Mike Tyson, as Mike Tyson was busy ducking Evander Holyfield. and I'll touch on that part at the end of the show. And when Buster Douglas beat Oliver McCall, one of the better performances he had at that time, the Don King camp made an offer to James Buster Douglas and basically just give him a low ball offer. I think it was somewhere like $1 million, which he should have gotten more. And to basically go to Japan and be an opponent for Mike Tyson, as the original set date of June 16, 1990, between Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield was set. All Mike Tyson had to do was beat James Buster Douglas. Funny thing happened on the way. That's actually a sad thing, and then a funny thing. I'll get to the sad thing real quick. It was 23 days before the sit fight between Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas, February 11th, 1990. 23 days before it, where it was the unfortunate passing of James Buster Douglas's mother, Lula Pearl, who died of a stroke at the young age of 47. And it was offered by the Douglas camp to him to postpone the fight with Mike Tyson, and Buster Douglas didn't accept the postponement. He basically said, "Go ahead with it. I'm going to prepare to beat him, and I'm going to do this for her." And everybody thought Buster Douglas was crazy, because we know the myth of Mike Tyson at that point. I mean, we know what Mike Tyson was made of at that point, at least to the idiotic fans that are called Tyson fans. But Buster Douglas basically said, "I'm going to be the best shape of my life. I'm going to be inspired by it to win this for my mom, and I'm going to go through with it," despite being offered to the opportunity to postpone this. And so what do we get on February 11th, 1990 in Tokyo, Japan? A performance of perfection as a 42-1 underdog, James Buster Douglas, who basically nobody gave him a chance to even last 90 seconds, breaks down, beats down, systematically destroys the not just Mike Tyson piece by piece, but throws a monkey wrench in probably the biggest fight in boxing history at that time between Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, which was originally set for June 16, 1990, had he won, by basically hitting him with an uppercut that flirted with decapitation. And Buster Douglas did the world, did society, did pop culture, and did sports a favor when he eradicated Mike Tyson on the night of February 11th, 1990 in Tokyo, Japan. It was a win for society. It was a win for pop culture. It was a win for professional sports. And it broke the most pathetic fan base in sports at the time, Mike Tyson fans. Because here we are in 2025, many of them with wrinkled faces, gray beards, and oxygen tanks, still making excuses. Mike Tyson lost to James Buster Douglas fair and square. He lost with James Buster Douglas, who willed himself and got in the best shape of his life, trained extra for this particular event. And when he got him in that ring, he wasn't intimidated. And that alone was all you needed to know. And on that night, James Buster Douglas had the performance of perfection, inspired by the loss of his mother. Also revealed that he was also inspired by the mother of a child who was going through a kidney ailment at the time. And everything on James Buster Douglas's mind, the focus, the drive, the determination, the skill. He, as they said, give him that one moment where he can more than he could be. That was James Buster Douglas in Tokyo, Japan on February 11th, 1990. He hit the pedestal to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. There's the James Buster Douglas angle. Now we're going to go to the other angle. That's the number one contender, Evander Holyfield. The 1984 Olympic bronze medalist, under funky circumstances, and I'll say funky just to be nice, made his debut in the cruiserweight division, and in 1986 gave us probably the greatest fight in the history of the cruiserweight division, when he and Dwight Muhammad Qawi on free TV just threw it down in a 15-round fight, give and take both ways. And on that particular night, the world saw a noble warrior known as the Real Deal at the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia, when he beat Dwight Muhammad Qawi to win a third of the cruiserweight championship. Of course, reportedly to many great wins of cruiserweight. The other two being Ricky Parkey and Carlos De Leon, which wrapped up as the other two champs to make him the undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world. It was basically the clean out of the cruiserweight division. And it was after the Carlos De Leon fight, there was a spectator at ringside watching, this fellow named Mike Tyson. And after it was the victory over De Leon, that was when the buildup started to begin for both Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson after that fight. And it was at that point his management team of Lou Duva and George Benton made that move, make the move to heavyweight. Couple wins over Tyson opponents James Quick Tillis and Pinklon Thomas. Question, of course, going in was, does he have the staying power to hold off real heavyweights? So we entered the March night of 1989 at Caesar's Palace against a former heavyweight champion, Michael Dokes. Michael Dokes was one of those give and take fighters. We talk about the litmus test. Michael Dokes was a litmus test at that time. And he and Evander Holyfield probably had the heavyweight fight of the year in 1989. We talk about the back and forth exchanges where they just went at it. Sweat was flying, fists were flying, till the 10th round, where it was the quadruple left hook that sent Michael Dokes down to sleep. And Evander Holyfield basically silenced all critics to see whether he could hang in the heavyweight division by just showing the will that he showed it against Dwight Muhammad Cowie, showed it against Michael Dokes, gradually kept coming and kept coming. The quadruple left hook that put Michael Dokes to sleep and would win that particular fight to answer a lot of questions. And so we fast forward 5 months at Caesar's Tahoe in Lake Tahoe, where he faced an upstart Brazilian fighter named Adilson Rodriguez in a fight where basically it was a heavyweight eliminator. Question was especially from the morons known as Mike Tyson fans, was he worthy of the heavyweight championship or the heavyweight contendership to fight for Mike Tyson's championship? One overhand right cross in the second round shut everybody up. And at that point, it was the only fight worth talking about at the time. After he obliterated Adilson Rodriguez, the fight everybody wanted to see was Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield for the undisputed heavyweight championship. It was probably the most anticipated fight in boxing history at that point. And the buildup really started because shortly after that, Evander Holyfield pegged a ringside seat to Mike Tyson's first round knockout against a less than mediocre Carl the Truth Williams, and a title defense that had no business taking place, which sympathizes the career of Mike Tyson. And at that point, the craziness and everything when it comes to the two fighters and the management teams and their promoters started the show. Because shortly thereafter, there was an ABC interview by Alex Wallow conducted by Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson was asked, why aren't you going after Evander Holyfield? Basically, Mike Tyson started using the excuses as to why the fight just stalled out. Really, in hindsight, we'll talk about why it stalled out for a while at the time. It was a bad blood between the promoters, Dan Duva of Evander Holyfield and Don King of Mike Tyson. For them, everybody in the fight game back in my time knows what type of a feud Dan Duva and Don King had. Not even the Hatfields and McCoys had that kind of a hatred toward one another that Dan Duva and Don King had. That's another subject for down the line. But we started to have that buildup. But before the original scheduled date of June 16, 1990, James Buster Douglas happened. And that was why we didn't get Tyson Holyfield in 1990. And that was why we had this particular fight, Buster Douglas versus Evander Holyfield instead. What we had here, here's one thing I'll back up for a little bit, and I'm going to shoot this myth real fast, because I'm going to shoot more myths about this later. The moronic phrase called Mike Tyson fans uses grotesque and psychotic and almost borderline cowardly imagination to think he was worthy of a rematch against James Buster Douglas after Buster Douglas obliterated him in Tokyo, Japan. That's one of the most biggest bunch of cowardly talk Mike Tyson fans could ever come up with. The key word being cowardly. Because Mike Tyson, it wasn't just a close fight. Mike Tyson got smashed like a cheeseburger and just shipped out of Japan to the States. That's what James Buster Douglas did to him. It was a one-sided beatdown outside of a fake long count, which is basically a fake long count. Don't tell that to Mike Tyson fans because they get their panties all up in a bunch. But it was a beatdown and a bum rush, and Mike Tyson had no business fighting for any heavyweight championship at that point because Evander Holyfield was the mandatory after his win over Adilson Rodriguez. And because of that, he had the call to this particular fight. Mike Tyson had to sit on the waiting lines. And he wasn't worthy of a rematch despite everything. Despite a fake protest by Don King. Everybody knows what that one was all about. And despite all the outrage that went with the Mike Tyson fanboys, especially Mike Tyson's boy toys, John Horn and Roy Holloway. And because of all of that, Mike Tyson was not worthy of a rematch with James Buster Douglas. Let's put it that way. Because actually, he didn't just lose. He was beat down, bum rushed, basically shipped to the States from Japan, basically FedEx. That's what happened. And the fight wasn't even close. Aside from the lucky uppercut that floored Douglas in round 8, Buster Douglas won every minute of every round in a performance of perfection. So Mike Tyson wasn't worthy of that rematch. Mike Tyson fans can shut up about it. If you want to carry yourselves like cowards, go ahead. Because he wasn't worthy of it. Who was worthy? Evander Holyfield. He earned the number 1 spot. He basically said, I don't care if it was Mike Tyson or Buster Douglas. Whoever was going to be the heavyweight champ, I want him next. And that's what we had of October 25th, 1990 at the Mirage in Las Vegas. Of course, Don King did everything in his power to prevent the fight from happening, saying Mike Tyson should have been given the first shot at Buster Douglas, which Mike Tyson didn't deserve it. But there was no rematch clause, nothing of that magnitude. So that basically was down the tubes. But, and of course, he tried to also say he was under the, Buster Douglas was under the contract of Don King because of it. And Buster Douglas tried to break it. Apparently, this agreement that took place before it, so both guys could part ways. The Mirage actually covered the expenses to pay Buster Douglas an extra $4 million on top of it. The founder, Steve Wynn. So that took care of itself. And after all of that, we had what took place 35 years ago at the Mirage. Evander Holyfield and James Buster Douglas for the heavyweight championship of the world. One of the drawbacks of James Buster Douglas, I said, has always been his ability to maintain his weight. Always been up and down the scales. Managed to get to 231 when he beat Mike Tyson. And Buster Douglas camp thought he would be somewhere around like the mid 230s. The weight of the fight, the guy weighed in at 246 pounds. There was basically a rumor flying around at that point that he brought a whole entire pizza and ate it during training camp. I mean, we 230 pounds, you can eat anything you want, I guess. But that tells you the inconsistencies of what James Buster Douglas was leading up to the Mike Tyson fight, and it showed here. Now, you talk about Evander Holyfield, as I said, this was what he wanted, to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Now, it wasn't Mike Tyson, but it didn't matter. He was the number 1 contender. It was his call to become the undisputed heavyweight champ. Even though it was James Buster Douglas, he said, I'm going to go get it. And he came in at a ready 208 pounds, light on his feet, ready to go. And after all of that, all of the craziness with Don King sticking his nose where it didn't belong, and the cowardice of Mike Tyson fans thinking Mike Tyson deserved a rematch against James Buster Douglas when he didn't, we finally have what took place at the Mirage. Actually, you can almost tell the look on Evander Holyfield's face, driven, determined, that he had a feeling he was going to leave Las Vegas with a heavyweight championship on that night. And basically wasted no time. Basically, he used Buster Douglas' size as a disadvantage, almost as a handicap, stayed on his feet, kept him at bay for the first 2 rounds. Then the 3rd round comes. Buster Douglas looked like he was trying to get something going. Then he throws the uppercut from Columbus, Ohio, and misses so badly that Evander Holyfield, with a perfectly timed counter right cross right on the chin of James Buster Douglas, and you have a 246-pound man down, and he wasn't getting up. The second Douglas hit the canvas, you knew he wasn't getting up. And he was on the canvas, literally like he was laying down to sleep on a jail bed. That's how he was laying down after that punch. The perfectly placed counter right hand right on the point of the chin, and that was all she wrote. And after the count reached 10, Mildred Taylor, Pernell Whitaker, Mark Breland, the Olympic teammates of Evander Holyfield, mob him among his training crew of Lou Duva and George Benton. And the moment Evander Holyfield won it, when he moved up to heavyweight, he got it. And it was announced after the 3rd round knockout, Evander Holyfield became the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Much to the chagrin of the cowards known as Mike Tyson fans, but they got what they deserve as a result, because Mike Tyson wasn't worthy of a rematch. This fight, we talk about the 2 fights in 1990 between Tyson and Holyfield, was the epitome of what James Buster Douglas was all along. Terrific talent. I mean, a 6'4" body, I mean, very light on his feet, had a jab almost Larry Holmes and Sonny Liston-esque in that area, but just could never sustain it and couldn't put it together the way you should have at that level. And you would think after he beat Mike Tyson, who he's basically a slight favorite to beat Evander Holyfield, understandably so, after what he did to Mike Tyson. But you thought maybe he would emulate that, but it didn't. Evander Holyfield fought the smart fight. It's Bobby Chiz, the one-time opponent, was say about him, smart boxing. That's what he did. He did not let Buster Douglas use his weight, not let him use his jab. Stayed away, stayed on his feet, used that 246 pounds on James Buster Douglas as a handicap. And as a result, that's why Buster Douglas was laying down as if he was laying down on a jail bed inside a waiting cell. That's what happened to Buster Douglas 35 years ago. Just the epitome of what he was in and out of the ring. The weight fluctuations, the talent was there, but the weight of fluctuations just got in the way and just never could sustain it for the longest time. And he hit the bottom after that. We talk about going to from the penthouse to the outhouse. And forget outhouse to the penthouse. From the penthouse to the outhouse, James Buster Douglas did it after meeting Mike Tyson and just getting pasted by Evander Holyfield. Had a series of life traumatizing events, which he admitted that after soaking in all the emotions of the loss of his mother to prepare for Mike Tyson, he finally had the chance to exhale, let it all hang out. Never didn't sink in until after the Holyfield loss. Was into a diabetic coma, which he flirted with death, forced to come back, had a decent mini comeback until he was knocked out in 1999 by Lou Savarese. It was actually pegged at that time for a rematch with Mike Tyson, but wild things prevented that from happening. But after the Savarese fight, it was all she wrote for James Buster Douglas. A perfect case, we talk about James Buster Douglas, of a fighter who had the talent to be something, but could never sustain it consistently. But maybe the greatest one-hit wonder in pop culture history, when we talk about what he did February 11th, 1990, when he went to Tokyo, Japan, and did society a favor by knocking out Mike Tyson. That would be James Buster Douglas's legacy. I mean, the talent was there to be special. You saw it when he was a bum rush Mike Tyson, but consistency was always an issue with him. The talent was there. Now we go to the flip side, and the flip side of this, we know the story of Evander Holyfield, probably one of the all-time great overachievers, in not just in boxing, but in sports, an all-time sports legend. Fought everybody in the 90s. I mean, he fought everyone. I mean, when I said the heavyweight division started to get hot, it was these two guys that started it, Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield, and it was Holyfield who carried it on throughout the rest of the decade. And you tell all the guys he fought: George Foreman, Burt Cooper, Larry Holmes, Michael Moore, Riddick Bowe, Mike Tyson twice eventually. I'll touch on that in a second. Lennox Lewis. I mean, even a couple other guys like a Ray Mercer, who was a tough out for anyone. He and Holyfield had a great scrap in May of 1995. He fought them all, exception of Lennox Lewis was at the back end of his career. Fought them all, basically beat them all, and wanted all the smoke. In a sport today where everyone's so picky on who they want and why they want it, Evander Holyfield just basically said, "Next man up, I'm here waiting." And even though I was a champion, you want the belts? Come and get it. That's what Evander Holyfield was when he ruled the roost throughout the 90s. I said the second best heavyweight of the 90s behind Lennox Lewis. Another topic for another day. But we talk about the fact that even though he won it from him over Mike Tyson, and the fact that Mike Tyson fans never wanted to accept it, it speaks to their cowardice. Because their boy got punked by James Buster Douglas. I'll shoot down some myths here real quick, and this is going to be too easy. Well, let's start with this first one here real quick, and this one's actually the easiest of them all. Had Mike Tyson beaten Buster Douglas, would he have beaten Evander Holyfield? More than likely not. Because I said, for one simple reason, I said this the other night when I talked about the first Holyfield-Tyson fight in 96. Evander Holyfield was never afraid of Mike Tyson. I mean, Mike Tyson's biggest strength was to scare you. But Evander Holyfield's biggest strength, he was never intimidated. If you're not going to be intimidated by Mike Tyson, you basically won the fight. I mean, that's what Buster Douglas showed, before Douglas-Holyfield when they fought in Japan. Buster Douglas showed it Evander Holyfield, who was at ringside, saw it. He was always going to beat Mike Tyson, no matter the era. I mean, doesn't matter who doesn't matter who was in the corner of Mike Tyson. The cowards known as Mike Tyson fans think Kevin Rooney was an end-all be-all. Do you know who else trained Evander Holyfield? I'll give you two brilliant names. George Benton, and even at one point, Emmanuel Stewart. Don't think for one second either of those guys would have had a perfect game plan for Evander Holyfield to whoop Mike Tyson the way Buster Douglas did. Because you guys want to talk about Mike Tyson's having Kevin Rooney in Mike Tyson's corner being important? Evander Holyfield had George Benton and at one point Emmanuel Stewart. Don't think those guys want to have Evander Holyfield ready to whoop Mike Tyson, because he would have. It was plain and simple. Any version of Evander Holyfield would always beat any version of Mike Tyson for one simple reason only: no fear. No one's. You can say Mike Tyson was more skilled. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, he certainly was. But Evander Holyfield was never intimidated. That alone just leveled the playing field, and anything else was just always going to tip into his favor. Now I go back to what I said a few minutes ago, because this is where the Mike Tyson fans show their cowardice. That Buster Douglas should have given Mike Tyson an immediate rematch. No, he shouldn't. Two reasons for this one. The first one, the Tyson fight wasn't even close. James Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson up, down, left, right, every direction in between, folded him up like a cheap tint, and shipped him to the States from Japan, FedEx style. That's what James Buster Douglas did to Mike Tyson. That's number one. Number two, who was the mandatory challenger for the Tyson-Douglas winner? Evander Holyfield. He basically said, I don't care who wins. I am the number one contender. I want the winner. I want to be the heavyweight champion. Doesn't matter who. He was actually approached by ESPN after the fight, saying, does it change his tune, to be the heavyweight champ if after Mike Tyson lost? He said, no, my goal is to be the heavyweight champ. And that's what he did 35 years ago at the Mirage. That was his easy shutdown also. Especially when we talk about the garbage that comes out of Mike Tyson fans' mouths. A couple other myths. I'll just, before I put this thing to bed. And this one here, we talk about what happened with Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson, and it's straightforward that Don King had the grips of the heavyweight division. No, he didn't, because even that time you had the feeling that Don King knew that something bad was about to happen. Because we talk about the sparring session between Mike Tyson and Greg Page prior to the Douglas loss. You had a feeling something bad was going to come, and even Don King knew it. Even though he tried to circumvent the Buster Douglas Evander Holyfield fight by trying to stick his nose in it, saying he had the contractual control over Buster Douglas, which in hindsight it didn't. Don King never had control of the heavyweight division at that point. I mean, a little bit of it with the fake champs in the mid-90s, but they were fake champs. We all know that. And when it comes to what happened down the line with this, did Evander Holyfield need Mike Tyson as bad as people made it out to be? You can say that. Just to say he beat everybody in his era, you can say he did. I mean, granted, the fight took place in '96. I mean, granted, turmoil in and out of the ring with both fighters got to that point for many reasons. But Evander Holyfield, just to say he was the best of that time, needed Mike Tyson. I mean, even though Mike Tyson was, you can say, the Tyson family say, shell of his former self. Let me shoot this one down real quick. Evander Holyfield was a bigger shell of himself when he beat Mike Tyson in 1996, because he was a year removed from having the break speeding off of him by Riddick Bowe in their third fight. And I mean, he had the break speeding off of him outside of a haymaker left hook. And he was 6 months removed from a fight against Bobby Ches, where he is basically nondescript, and everyone was calling for Evander Holyfield to just gracefully retire. It was revealed later in a documentary that Evander Holyfield said it was shortly after the Ches fight the Tyson people wanted him, thinking they was going to have a name on the Holyfield resume. As we say in today's sport, it was a cherry pick gone bad. So did Evander Holyfield need Mike Tyson? Just to say he did it all, you could probably say that. But in the grand scheme of things, his legacy was established before the two Tyson fights. I mean, he fought them all at that point. I mean, the only one he didn't fight was Lennox Lewis, but there was odd circumstances with governing bodies, Mike Tyson, Don King, in the mid-90s when Tyson had the fake heavyweight championship out of prison. That's another story. But just for the sake of doing it. He needed it. There were two scheduled fights between Holyfield and Tyson. First one was June 16 in 1990. That went down the tubes because James Buster Douglas happened. Second one was November 8th, 1991. Mike Tyson fakes a rib injury to duck Evander Holyfield. I'm sorry, you don't break a rib doing sit-ups. That's just a moronic excuse. Fakes the rib injury to duck Evander Holyfield in 1991. And we know what happened to him 6 months after that. The 3-year prison sentence. You can say what you want about him not being the same guy. Evander Holyfield wasn't the same guy either. He was 4.5 years older, a more sharp-born body after what Riddick Bowe did to him in the 3 fights, especially that third one where he got the stuffing beaten out of him. So miss me with the Evander Holyfield. Mike Tyson would have beaten Evander Holyfield at their peaks because that myth that was shot down the night Holyfield beat him the first time. And spare me your hypocrisy when you talk about, but Buster Douglas should have given Mike Tyson a rematch. Mike Tyson wasn't the mandatory challenger. Evander Holyfield was. And Buster Douglas handed Mike Tyson's butt to him upside down, inside out, backside forward, smashed into a hamburger, FedEx him back to the States from Japan. I mean, it wasn't a close fight. This ideology that Buster Douglas should have given Mike Tyson a rematch is one of the most cowardly things you could ever say, especially from the mouths of Mike Tyson fans, because he never earned it. He never deserved it. And because of how Buster Douglas beat him in Tokyo, Japan, that was the end for everything. I mean, if you're going to say Mike Tyson earned it, how the hell did he earn it? I mean, he got a fake win over Henry Tillman after the loss of Buster Douglas, but that didn't do anything for him. And, of course, it was shortly after that, Douglas got knocked out by Holyfield, and the whole thing became a mess. And one of the interesting and almost borderline sad spinoffs of all of that is one of the pathetic governing bodies tried everything in their power to strip both but first from Buster Douglas and then from Evander Holyfield, because the president said he thought Mike Tyson was robbed against James Buster Douglas on the fake loan count. There was no real loan count. That was a fake loan count. You want to know what a heck of a loan count is? Shut your mouths and read the story about Jack Dempsey. That's a loan debt count. How he was robbed against Gene Tunney in the second fight. No way was that a loan count when we talk about what happened. James Buster Douglas was a rightful winner of the undisputed heavyweight title. And when he defended against Evander Holyfield was the rightful winner of the heavyweight champion of the world 35 years ago today with a perfectly timed right cross that pasted James Buster Douglas on the mat as if he was laying down in the jail bed. That's how James Buster Douglas was laying down after that punch. And we talk about just where this particular fight in the grand scheme of things. We talk about how hot the heavyweight division started to get in the 90s. We were the heavyweights back then, and we got real hot. These two guys started it. What Douglas did to Tyson, eventually what Evander Holyfield did to Buster Douglas 9.5 months later. And from that point, all the heavyweights just started to pile on. I mean, you can name them all. Bowe, Lewis, Mercer, Morrison. Doesn't even feel of them. David Tua, eventually. Even a couple guys, even Donnell Nicholson in there. Many names I go forward to. But when we talk about how the 90s heavyweights were, it started with these two guys 35 years ago tonight. Actually, Buster Douglas started it when he shocked the world by doing society a favor by knocking out Mike Tyson. And then Evander Holyfield just said, I'll one-up you. I'll beat you to win the heavyweight title, and I'll just take it from there. And I should add, among the heavyweights of the 90s was a resurrection of George Foreman, which he ascended to the heavyweight champion in 1994. But the 90s heavyweights got hot. This fight was one of the pillars of it, one of the ones that started it. And no one's going to say this is as great as the 70s because there's a lot of hit and misses of this one than the 70s were. But the 90s heavyweights was deeper. It was certainly had the potential to be more talented and be more special than what it was because the names were there. But when it really got hot, it certainly did got hot because some of those guys fought on one another. The only exception, of course, is Bowe and Lewis, but we know the story about that one. Another topic for another day. So we talk about all of the myths that before, during, and after this fight. They're just myths. Is it something in the grotesque, psychotic, in deep personal fantasy world for the cowards known as Mike Tyson fans, because they have this grotesque, almost sickening fantasy of putting Mike Tyson in something that he doesn't belong. And, I said Mike Tyson was a talk of the town. That's it. When you talk about this situation, they have this grotesque, almost sickening imagination, thinking that because something didn't go their way, that they can say the things they want. As Bill Parcells says, the excuses speak for themselves. What happened to Mike Tyson against James Buster Douglas? He got beat down at bum rush and FedEx to the States effortlessly. And you think that warranted a rematch with Tyson and Douglas at that point? It didn't. Because Mike Tyson when you get it handed to you, the way Mike Tyson did at James Buster Douglas, anything you warranted of a rematch, something is wrong with you. I mean, the only reason why they don't want to see a rematch was because the grotesque fascination of Mike Tyson fans. That's why they're the ones that wanted the rematch. He didn't really deserve it. Let's end that in a minute. And we talk about after the fight and how Evander Holyfield capitalized on this opportunity, and how Mike Tyson fans still have this grotesque imagination saying because it wasn't Mike Tyson, he's not the real champ. Doesn't work that way. Mike Tyson lost his title to James Buster Douglas. Buster Douglas lost that championship to Evander Holyfield. Holyfield was a champion. Mike Tyson had to go get it. But he faked the rib injury in 1991 and wound up in prison 6 months after that. And the rest is history. And when they came out of jail, Evander Holyfield basically showed that any version of him beats any version of Mike Tyson for one simple reason and one reason only. And that's in 2 words. No fear. Evander Holyfield was never going to be afraid of him. And all of this craziness took place 35 years ago at its apex, after Mike Tyson fans continued their excuses, after Don King continued his protests. We still had Buster Douglas versus Evander Holyfield for the real undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. And it was Evander Holyfield who pursued this goal after cleaning out the cruiserweight division, set the goal, and reached it. The perfectly placed right cross that had Buster Douglas sleeping and becoming the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, much to the chagrin of Mike Tyson fans. Because they still call Mike Tyson champ because of their grotesque imagination. We all know that. To them, it's like he's a grotesque imagination. It's one of the most grotesque things you'll ever see. I mean, when he came out of prison, he won fake heavyweight championships. Let's get that out of the way. He won fake heavyweight championships. The real heavyweight champ at the time was George Foreman, which we know Mike Tyson didn't want that smoke with Big George. And this coming from a guy who loved Mike, but I have to tell it like it is, because he wasn't going to mess with anyone. I mean, great. Mike had the demons, but the demons didn't cost him this heavyweight championship. Mike Tyson not getting ready for James Buster Douglas, and James Buster Douglas being ready cost Mike Tyson that championship. The same things you can say about James Buster Douglas not being ready cost him the heavyweight championship 9 months later to Evander Holyfield. You can play all the myths all you want with this circumstance, before, during, and after. You can drag Tyson into it all you want. It doesn't matter. The real heavyweight championship was fought at the Mirage, October 25th, 1990. The real heavyweight champ was James Buster Douglas. The real deserving challenger was Evander Holyfield. Actually, let me back this up for a quick second before I proceed. It was the real deserving undisputed heavyweight champion James Buster Douglas against the real deserving number 1 contender Evander Holyfield. Holyfield earned the right to call his number as a mandatory challenger. Buster Douglas earned the heavyweight championship the right way, and that's why we had the real heavyweight championship that took place in the Mirage. You can bust all your myths you want. I don't care. I mean, you say anything you want. You can do anything you want. It doesn't matter. Results already set in stone. And you can try to say and do anything you want. You can simply nitpick it any way you want. It doesn't matter. Because what happened in that ring to Mike Tyson, the rest is history. I mean, if it was a close loss, I could get it. But it wasn't a close loss. He was beat down a bum rush. And guess whose fault it was Mike Tyson did the things he did? It was Mike Tyson. It wasn't Don King. It wasn't cocaine. It wasn't Robin Givens. It wasn't Robin Givens' significant other behind Mike Tyson's back. It wasn't Mike Tyson's significant other behind Robin Givens' back. It wasn't the fact that they like to hook up with noses and snort cocaine. Of course, the biggest mistake Mike Tyson made was be friends with a coward named Bobby Brown. But guess whose fault that is? Not Bobby Brown's. It was Mike Tyson's. I'll just throw that out there because it's Tyson fans who want to come out of the woodworks after I'm done with this because I know how they are. I lived it since the 1980s. I mean, you mentioned James Buster Douglas. You mentioned Evander Holyfield. The cowards, known as Mike Tyson fans, will bust out with a moronic Prime Tyson comment, acting like he would have demolished both of them in his prime. Theories don't work in boxing. Triangle theories don't work in boxing. Because what happened the night James Buster Douglas beat him, that's history. But when you spin it off to what took place 35 years ago, it was a deserving heavyweight champ and a deserving number one contender. They made the call. They made the rightful call, and that was all it was. Simply put, that is simply because Mike Tyson wasn't worthy of anything, especially after how he had it handed to him by James Buster Douglas. So Mike Tyson fans have this wildest imaginations. It's just weird. It's that the Buster Douglas career was just basically as inconsistent as it could be. A case of a talent who could have been better than what he was, because a physical specimen at that time, very athletic, and that jab of his was as good as anyone's. And Evander Holyfield, perfect case of a guy who overachieved, always had a chip on his shoulder. No matter what he did, at times he always thought he could be better, and that's why he was one of the top two heavyweights, along with Lennox Lewis of the 90s, till the two met head on in 1999. Just a standout heavyweight, and sort of very two talented heavyweights. One just had a tremendous work ethic. That was a difference, and that history speaks for itself. I mean, Buster Douglas, I'll give him this much. Every time you mention Mike Tyson, the first thing on his mind is his mom, because that's who he won it for. And actually, if you watch the 42-1 documentary on the ESPN's 30 for 30, you can still see every day tears coming down his face every time he mentions his mom. That's to tell you the kind-hearted human being James Buster Douglas is, the kind-hearted human being Mike Tyson fans despise. And there's a reason for it. We know what it is. And Evander Holyfield, same way. Mike Tyson fans despise him for whatever reason, and we know what it is. But the fight that had to happen, the fight that rightfully happened, took place, and Evander Holyfield reached the pedestal. The rest is history. And on that note, that'll wrap up this edition of Sir Hunt on X. No show for the weekend. I will be back Monday night. If you missed this one or any other shows of the past, always remember, you can listen to the Apple Podcast and iHeart Radio versions of this audio-wise. You can watch the video version of this on the Spotify app. And soon, many, many more platforms coming. A rebranding, a new name. The gloves will be fully off because I've kept some of them on. Starting 2026, everything's going to be different. Same stuff, but a whole different approach. I don't care who likes it or don't likes it. But as I said, if you want to come to me, have at it. I'm not a hard guy to find. And as always, make self-care your number one priority in all walks of life. Make sure you take care of yourselves first before you take care of anything else. If you take care of yourself first, all the good things will come your way. And if you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else matters. Focus on you, take care of you, and good things will happen. And I should also add, in lieu of what took place with the craziness with the NBA, if you have a gambling problem, seek help. You saw what happened when that thing goes over the rails. And it's sad. And that's sad. And on that note, that'll wrap up the show. I will be back Monday night. Until then, have a good rest of the night. Have a good 3-day weekend. Take care of yourselves. God bless. I'll be back Monday, and I'll see you then.